This video is made possible by Hey there! Welcome back to a new episode of Tutorial Tuesday about the remix. In this season I talk about my remix of Zomboy's Here to Stay featuring Lady Chan, which has now been released as a free download on my SoundCloud profile. To go there and download the track, click the link in the description box below this video. Last week I showed you the second part of the drop, and today I want to go a little bit more in depth about the middle, sort of like a breakdown part of the drop. It's not the real breakdown, but it's more of like a synth part that fits into this drop section, or however you want to call it. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm gonna play that part for you first. Last week we talked about this part, which sounds like this. I think you can still remember that part. Okay, so today I want to talk about this part, and I'm gonna play that for you right now so you can hear how it sounds. Keep an ear on the way how I use the vocal in terms with the bass, because that really makes this breakdown part seem the way it is. I've used less bass sounds in this part, as you can see. Yeah, I've used a little part of that patch that I made myself, and I've used only one sound as a main bass patch from the sounds that were included with the remix pack. And I've got this, which is, yeah, just a little chop again from that same pack. So yeah, let's get into it. It sounds like this. Okay, so that's it. You can hear that it sounds really different from this first part of the drop, and that is because the vocal kicks in. So what is happening? Because naturally the vocal takes up so much space that you normally wouldn't be able to layer it with a drop sounding this big. So how did I do it? Because it still sounds good, right? Well, you can see that the vocal kicks in right at this part. Now, that this vocal kicks in means that there's gonna be other elements stripped away from this drop to make room for this vocal. And you can do this in multiple ways, and I'm gonna show you how I did it. So, let's see. This vocal, by the way, is unaffected. It's just the normal vocal. There's no automation on the delay, like you can see happening here. Here is quite some automation, but this is without any automation. So the drums again are the same as in the rest of the track, except for this little ending part that does sound a little bit different from the rest. You know, it sounds like this, and I made it into And, you know, the drums itself are not that important or are not that crazy at all. The drums are mostly just simple sounds, but really processed a lot to make it sound like this. Yeah, for the percussion is a little bit interesting because during this part of the drop, I'm actually taking away these fast hi-hats and I'm making them, you know, not 1/16 notes, but 1/8 notes. So the hats in this part of the track are a little bit slower. And that does give you a little bit more space on those parts. I mean, it's not much, but it's still a little bit of space. And all these little bits of space that together create a little bit more space that you can fill up. So that's what I did with the hats. I just took out some of the hats in this part of the drop. And now for the bass drop. Or let's go to the synths first. Synths, just the same chords again, but with longer notes. You can see in the first part of the drop I used the same chords, but I used them really short. Let's see, where in this track is this? Right there. Okay, yeah, so you can see it. Right here I have really short notes. And when I go to this part of the drop, the notes become longer. I did this because I found that this part of the drop needed to have that little bit more melodic character instead of that full in-your-face bass drop sounds. So the synths really fill out the parts that actually became a little bit quieter because I took out a lot of the bass sounds. So that synth group really adds something to this part of the drop. I mean, I can show you. Without the synths, it sounds like this. So when I add the synths, you get this. So you can really hear how much fatter that actual drop became by adding those synths. And the same goes for the main drop. I mean, without the synths, without the supersaw, it really sounds a lot more weaker and a lot less heavy. So that's something to think about when you're making a drop and the first hit in your drop is not big enough, or it doesn't have that, you know, really powerful character. Sometimes layering some chords on top of it will work. So that's just something to think about. And if you have the capabilities to do this, then do it. I mean, don't go and ask to somebody else, hey, should I add chords to this? Do whatever you feel is right. Because I get so many of these questions of people asking me stuff like, hey, I made this track, and do you think I might add a chord, or do you think I might add another lead, or an arpeggiated lead, or whatever? Dude, come on, seriously. If you think you need to add something, then add it. It's your track, and you are the director, so you are gonna make sure and say what is gonna happen in the track. And if you really go take this route, you know, take that approach, then in the end, you will make music that you like because you are making it. And if you're gonna ask other people constantly about, do I need to add this, do I need to add that, then it's not really your track anymore, right? I mean, you're still making it, but if you're constantly asking for advice, I mean, it's not that I don't want to give answers, because I'm here to help, and if you really got something that you don't know how to answer, or you don't know how to do it, answer it. Or, what am I saying? Ask it, and I'll get back to you with an answer as soon as possible. But, also, if you have a question, please put the question in a tweet to me at Twitter, or at my Facebook, or at my forum, and not in a comment below this video, because I do read all of the comments, but I don't have time to answer all of the comments on YouTube, because that will take a lot of time. So I'm not gonna do that. Now let's go on. For the real instruments, you might be able to still remember that this is the piano loop and the horn loop. So these are basically just added in again, copied over straight from the intro, as you can see. I did use a little bit of automation on the piano loop and on the horns. I didn't actually automated anything on the autofilter's frequency. The frequency stays exactly the same, but the resonance is being automated. So what that does is, right here at the start, these sounds have a little bit more resonance, and because the autofilter frequency automation is all the way up, it will actually, brighten up the high frequencies a little bit, and that will go down. So right at the start of this drop, the high frequencies in this piano loop and in the horn loop are going to be more prominent, and towards the middle part of that drop, they become less prominent. So that's just a little thing to think about, because of those high frequencies that are added, this part of the track really sounds quite bright, and it becomes a little bit, just a tiny little bit less bright towards the next part of the drop, which starts here. And you want that part of the drop to really punch you in the face again, just like with this one. So you'll have to in some sort of way, you'll have to automate this or automate something else to sort of like take away some harmonics towards this drop. And that will make sure that this part of the drop where it kicks in again is going to sound really fat. Let's see. For the effects. Well, this is really, really simple. There's just a downlifter. That's basically everything I added. It's nothing else going on in terms of effects. So that's everything except the bass. Now I want to go into the bass, and I will show you how I created the room for the vocal. So first of all, this part of the drop is a lot less busy than the other two parts of the drop. I mean, it's not that difficult to see that this is less busy than this, right? The only difference is that I've used long bass notes in here, and I have been a little bit sloppy, I have to say, because when I play this, you can hear that I've actually cut it not exactly on the right spot. You can see here that tiny little drop in this line of the waveform. I didn't really cut it at the 0 point. So you get a little click at the end of each bass note. Listen. Now, normally I would, take that out, make this just a tiny bit shorter, or bring up the fades for this track and, add a little fade out, because that will get rid of that click. But I was in a hurry while making this track. I actually made this in 2 or 3 days. So I didn't really have time to spend on these ending parts of these chops. And actually I didn't even hear those clicks until I actually started recording the tutorials. And I already sent it in the track back at that point. But if you listen to this in the full mix, you're not even gonna hear those clicks. So I didn't really felt any need to take them out. I do wanna show you the bass drop on its own. This is how the drop on its own sounds, so without any drums, chords, effects, or anything. Okay, you see, you can hear there's a couple of things going on. The main sound in this bass, in this part of the drop, is this bass sound. This the main sound. I'm not gonna go into how I made this sound, because I've already done that in earlier videos, or how I process the sound. So I'm not gonna go into details about that in this video. I do wanna show you what I did. Now, you can see the first one hits on the beat. The second one hits off beat. So that's pretty okay, you know, using offbeat sounds really works very well. But if you look at the drums, and I need to close down on some things, you can see that all of these bass sounds that I have here line up with each kick in this part of the track. So if I solo the drums and solo the bass drop part, you will hear that these bass sounds and the kicks fall on exactly the same spot every time. So that actually gives the bass a little bit more punch without actually processing this bass. You hear what I mean? So then I've added this basically just this chop from the sounds that I made my own, that are coming from the patch that I talked about in the first part of the drop videos. It sounds like this. Very short, stabby 1/16 note LFO bass. Really simple, you could replicate that easily. Repeated it again right here, and then at the end I've added this one, which is all coming straight from this patch. I mean, there's not really that much going on, it's just I still have the patch here, it's just these notes. That's it, and that run through the processing I've already talked about, and you get that. So you can see that these bass sounds actually fall within the empty spots between these bass sounds, because that's why I think when you're making bass lines, you really need to think about the call and response action between several bass sounds. So by using multiple bass sounds together in a call and response type way, you're going to sort of like make a conversation between the different bass sounds, and that will really make a very good drop. Now, this does take a lot of time to get used to you know, practice this to become good at it. But after a lot of times of doing this, you're gonna be able to think for yourself like, okay, I need to add a high wobble sound in here, or I need to add a growly bass sound at this spot to make this drop better. And I cannot tell this often enough, to get to the point where you can tell to yourself, I need to add this to make it better, before you've actually done it. That will take a lot of time until you reach that point. But when you reach it, things are going to get a lot easier. And the only way to reach that point is by doing this. So if you want to become good at making bass lines like this, or making anything, I mean, whether you want to be good at sports, want to be good at making music, or want to be good at your normal day job, the only way to get good at it is by doing a lot of practice. And that's with everything. So, in my point of view, when you are not disabled in any sort of way that you need for the thing you want to learn, you can learn everything by doing it a lot. Okay, now done with the inspirational, motivational talking right now, and let's talk about this last part of the drop, or last part of this phrase. You have these 3 hits right here, followed by this hit, then that hit in the middle, and followed again by that hit. Sounds like this. So especially this last part really sounds pretty cool. It's basically very simple. I mean, it's just this sound with the high wobble sound in the middle, and that's it. I mean, there's not that much any else going on. Same goes for this part. Just made a little variation, you know, made it a little bit different, because variation is always good in your bass lines. You don't want people to get bored when they're listening to your track, because when people get bored, they will or go on to the next track, or they will skip to a later part in your track, and you don't want that. So you'll have to keep people's attention at any part of the track, and that's why variation is the key to getting people to listen to your track from start to end. And this means when your intro is already boring or repetitive right from the start, most people actually go to the next track. So think about that when making music. Would you listen to this music, or would you skip it? And when you come to the conclusion that you would skip it, then my advice to you is add more things, make more variation, or make something totally different. I mean, yeah, it's just a little thing. I see too many people just uploading tracks, which could be so much better when they've, you know, when they would just spend a little bit more time on it. So that being said, that's a pretty cool little thing. Now the progression is a little bit different. You get this one followed by that one. So you can hear it's a high wobble followed by my own patch, and then followed again by the main bass patch, which is then doing that. Now, this is all working together with the drums. I mean, still, especially the last part of the bass drop sounds like this. Now, that last couple of notes in this phrase, this part, really helps to lead into the next part of the drop. Oh yeah, I almost forgot the thing I wanted to talk about. I have to look what I did. Because I actually think that I automated something during this part of the track to make room for something else. Or at least that's what I thought I did. Oh yeah, here you can see what I did. I've automated the volume on this bass sound so that it goes down 3.7 dB during this part of the track. So this main bass sound is getting almost 4 dB quieter. Now 4 dB it sounds like not that much when you listen to the sound, but when making music 4 dB is quite a lot. I mean, 4 dB was about the room I needed for this vocal. So yeah, that's what I did. I just automated this bass sound to be a little bit less prominent and less high in volume, and that made room for the vocals. Now, you can hear when I play these two together, they do sound good together.
Feel it, yo. Feel it, so. Anybody want come up fit, wheel it, bro. Stand strong, we come fit, seal it, yo. Full on automatic, what's with deal with, yo. Multiply then divide, we bring this to you. And if the wrong talk, yo, you will get so. Can we not take interview? Divide not conquer, but we will rule.
So that's it, and that leads you into the next part of the drop section. Yeah, well, I'll just briefly run you through this one also. I think, let's see, how many time are we? 26 minutes already. Yeah, well, 26 minutes already. That's more than enough for this video. Next week we're gonna talk about the last part of the drop. This season is getting a little bit longer than I was hoping for, but I don't really think that you people are gonna mind that there's gonna be 1 or 2 extra videos in this season. Yeah, so that's it for all the separate elements of the drop and the basic construction of the drop. Next week I dive into this last part of the drop, and this was the 6th in a row of special videos about this remix. For all your questions, click the bottom left to tweet them to @ARTFX Studios and I'll answer them as soon as possible, or click the bottom right and become a member of the ARTFX website to share your music, give to and receive feedback from other users, and just have a great time on the forum. Subscribe for more tutorials and have a nice day. See ya!